Hello everyone, I'd like to welcome you to this video titled Volume of Rectangular Prisms. Now what you'll need to do is get out your Math and Focus book and turn to page 237. Get out your math journal, pencil, and calculator. Now the goal for this video is for you to be able to find the volume of a rectangular prism. Now when we talk about volume, it's important to understand what volume is. Now, the volume of an object is the amount of space occupied by the object or shape, which is a three-dimensional space. Now, when we think about area, that's going to be a two-dimensional object. Volume is three-dimensional, so it's the amount of space occupied by an object or shape, and volume is always going to be measured in cubic units. Okay, so we looked at cubes previously in some other lessons, and when you think about cubic units, it's whatever unit it is, and that's the measurement of each side. Okay, so if it's cubic inches, that means every side of that cube would be an inch. If it's cubic feet, every side of that cube would be a foot, and it's however many of those cubes would fit inside that three-dimensional object. Now, finding volume of a rectangular prism is fairly easy, and there's a formula for it. And volume equals length times width times height, and that's how you find the volume of a rectangular prism. We're going to do a couple of these problems together. So I want you to turn to page 240, and you can see this rectangular prism that we have here. Remember, it's a rectangular prism because its two bases are rectangles, and then every face is also a rectangle as well. So we name a prism first name by whatever basis it has, and you can see those are rectangles there. Now we can see that the length, width, and height is given to us. Now let's say we did not know what the length, width, and height is. We just have the three measurements. It is okay to multiply these numbers in any order. If you remember, there's the commutative property of multiplication, and that means you can multiply numbers in any order and still get the same answer. Okay, however, they've given us the length, width, and height. So we have the length is going to be 6. The width is 5 1/4. And the height is 12 inches there. So what we do is we multiply the length times the width times the height, and you can do that on your calculator. And when we multiply 5 1/4 times 6 times 12, that's going to give us 378 cubic inches. Okay, so what that means, if we had a cube and it's an inch on each side, that means 378 of those cubes could be stacked up and fit inside this three-dimensional object there. So 378 cubic inches for number 1. So now we're going to take a look at number 2 here on page 240. And what we can see is we have the length, the width, and the height. Now this is in centimeters. Okay, so we can see the length for this is going to be 8. The width, you can see from the front to the back, is going to be 7 2/10 centimeters. So we'll write that in there. And then the height, 3 centimeters. So we find length, width, and height. And we can see our formula, length times width times height. So what we have here is 8 times 7 2/10 times 3. And now we just multiply those different measurements together. 8 times 7 2/10 times 3 is going to give us 172 8/10 centimeters. I should say cubic centimeters. And just remember, if we take a cube and it has a centimeter for each length, width, and height, that means 172 8/10 of those cubes could fit inside this three-dimensional object. So that concludes the video on finding volume of rectangular prisms. Just remember, formula for finding volume of rectangular prisms is volume equals length times width times height. If you have any questions about this concept, please come and see me.